prepare ourselves, if you put your hand over your eyes, I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. And over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. And now just over your heart, and extend your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with is that principle is never bound by precedent. Principle is never bound by precedent. Now that's kind of churchy talk. And what it means is this: no matter how many screw-ups I've had, no matter what my history is, no matter how many bad decisions I've made in my life, has no bearing on my present or my future success, unless, of course, I want it to. But in itself, my history has no bearing on my future or my present success. Another way of saying it is this. A friend of mine says that precedence has no power. I'd rather say it like this: my history has no power. Will you say that with me? My history has no power. Unless, of course, you can't let go of your ex. And you're just working it and working it and working it. Unless you can't let go of the last bad experience you had in your job. And you're working it and working it and working it. Unless, of course, you don't believe that God's power is greater than any of your screw-ups. But if you will let go of your past and begin to really internalize this notion that principle is not bound by precedent, you'll be able to move ahead in so much faster a way. You know, one of the things we have to get clear about is the teaching is principle is not bound by precedent, but it doesn't say that it erases precedent. Principle doesn't erase your precedent. In fact, in recovery, we say it this way: we do not regret our past nor wish to shut the door on it. And what that means is we want our past to inform how we are, how we think, how we behave, how we plan, how we vision, how we dream. But we don't want to bound it. We don't want it bound up by that. And we certainly don't want it connected to our success in our life. Our work is to look at our past with such compassion, with a deep understanding that we were working with the very best consciousness that we had at that moment. Just like the song says. We move on. We notice it and we move on. Well, I'm going to start a series called Divine Do-Overs. And we're going to anchor ourselves in some information today so that when we get to really working with this concept of divine doers, we're ready to go. Because every time you do a divine do-over, it takes a little prep time. You have to up-level your consciousness. You have to up-level your understanding of what God can do in your life. You have to up-level what your future can hold for you in your life. The subtitle of this series, Divine Do-Overs, is actually how to make this time better than last time. How to ensure that this time and future times are better than last time. So, with all divine do-overs, as we begin to wake up, we begin to understand. And did you ever notice that the mistakes you make we learn from the mistakes that we make about things that don't matter much quicker than we learn from the mistakes about things that matter? You know, you play a board game, you make a mistake. Next time you play that board game, you don't make that same mistake. You get on the internet and you're Googling something and you use a word and all this stuff like, whoa, where did this come from? You don't make that mistake again. You get on Twitter, tell the whole world you love them when you didn't really mean to do all that to the whole world. You don't make that mistake again. See, things that don't matter, we pay attention to, we correct them. But when it comes to things that matter, we often don't learn from our mistakes. From our finances, we don't learn from our mistakes. Our relationships, we often don't learn from our mistakes. How we're working with our kids in our life, we don't often learn from our mistakes, no matter what age they are. Well, when that happens and we don't learn from our mistakes on those big things, here's what we often say. Why don't I learn? When will I ever learn? Don't we say that? When will I ever learn? We say it over and over. When will I learn? The most important word in that whole sentence is I. When will I learn? Because it's not about anybody else. What anybody else does to you or for you or through you. It only matters about the I. When will I learn? Because everywhere you go, there you are. And you just take yourself and continue to work with that same mindset. Well, I learned 3 myths that in order for us to get ready, in order for us to do the prep work, for us to do the divine do-overs, which we're going to really get into the next 3 weeks, but today I want to get us ready. So I learned 3 myths from this guy named Andy Stanley. Now, when I tell you what these 3 myths are, here's what's going to happen. You say, I know that. This isn't rocket science. Here's the real truth. Spirituality is not rocket science. In truth, spirituality is common sense. Not learned sense, but common sense. The whole basis of the Taoist religion is based on that. If you study the Tao, you know they are simple teachings based on looking at the world with common sense. So I'm going to look at these 3, but here's what I want you to know. I believe every one of you know these. I believe every one of you have heard them. Some of you have even thought about them. Now where we want to get is muscle memory, spiritual muscle memory. See, knowing about things is not the same as knowing them. And when we need to know something of a spiritual nature that will help us, it's not the time to learn it. The time to learn it is before, so that it's actually a response. It's muscle memory. Oh yeah, I know that. So the first myth that I want to talk about of the 3 myths is the myth of the experience. I have experience, so therefore, I won't do this again. I'm wiser. In light of what I've gone through, the experience I have now, I won't do that again. I know I'm preaching to the choir because you all know this. You've experienced it. Here's what experience does for us. It makes us older. It makes us tired. It makes us lonelier. It makes us sadder. But it doesn't make us wiser. It doesn't make us wiser. It's important because, see, we lull ourselves into this idea that what if we've gone through it one time, the next time will be different. And that's just not how it works. Here's what will make a difference with our experience. Evaluated experience makes a difference. Evaluated experience. And that's part of what we're going to do the next 3 weeks, is we're going to look really how to evaluate our past experience to make this time better than last time, so that we don't repeat things. So the first one is the experience myth. The second one is I know better myth. The I know better. Since I know better, I'm going to do better. Since I know from right and wrong, I'm going to always choose right. Since I know success and failure, I'm always going to choose success. Hello? You know, I know better than to go to a pizza buffet for lunch. I know that about myself. And yet, it's not unusual. See, the I know better myth. Remember when you were a kid and your mother would say, don't do that, or be sure and do that. And what did we say to our parents when they'd say over and over, be sure and do that. Be sure and don't do that. I know, Mom, I know. And then we get out the front door, and some adventure would be happening, and we'd be gone. Well, the same thing is true for big people, too. The same thing is absolutely true. See, here's what we need to cultivate. We need to cultivate, along with recognizing and knowing we can do better, we have to cultivate the courage and the connection with the Spirit within us to actually do better. And that's a discipline that can happen. Those of you who have not taken foundations, take foundations with me. Because we're going to really work on not only knowing spiritual principles, but actually applying them in our life. Because inspiration without application is what? Hallucination. And we're not interested in hallucinating. No, inspiration without application is hallucination. Amen. Number 3, myth number 3. It's the most deadly of the 3 myths. It's the one that'll take us out, and often does take us out. And that's the myth of there's not enough time. Time is running out. Time is my enemy. I'm not getting any younger. Opportunities are coming and opportunities are going, and I'm just here. It's a myth. It's a myth. The greatest one example recently, usually we'd be saying, oh, my sister's made this much money, my brother's made this high in his career, this blah, blah, blah. I heard one recently, a friend of mine said, my brother retired before me and he's younger. See, we can't leave it alone. We can't just know our rhythm in life and stay in our rhythm of life and know that time is our friend. Marriage counselors will tell people who are coming in for a second marriage, time is your friend. It's not your enemy. Take time to develop this relationship. Take time to develop new in-laws. Take time to blend families. Take time to know what your real values are. Well, I know, but it's getting, he might go away, she might go away. Time's running out. No. You got plenty of time. Take your time in these things that we are doing. See, this idea, we got to hurry. I got to hurry. I got a divorce. I got to start dating again. No, you don't. Take a minute. Take a minute to know yourself. Take a minute to know what you're bringing to the table. People say, I don't know. This relationship I'm in is just like the last one. Hello? Of course it is. Because you just jumped on into it. You didn't even know what you liked. You didn't take enough time to figure that out. Time is our friend. Time is our friend. Here's what happens when we rush. We're off balance. Have you noticed that? When you rush around on anything, you're off balance. When we get sick with a cold or something and we get a temperature, what do? We groan and we lay down, don't we? You get a temperature? Oh, I got a temperature. I do. Donna, tell you I do. Oh, I got a temperature. To lay down now. Okay. Well, when you go through something that's hard in your emotional life, when you get dumped, you're getting a temperature. When you get fired from a job or you leave a job because you're mad, you got a temperature. You need to take a moment. You have a big fight with your children, and it looks like it's going to be one of those that could end up being a rift, and you could be estranged for many years. You got a temperature. Sit down for a minute. Don't rush. Just take a minute. You know, those of us who like to have a little scriptural underpinning of our information, there's so many in the Bible. There's so many do-overs in the Bible. Almost every character in the Bible has gotten some kind of do-over going. They had a bad experience. Experience 1 was bad, and then they come up to experience 2, and they want to make it better. Moses. Moses kills a guy. Come back in December and I'll tell you how. Moses kills a guy, and then he goes, and so he's ostracized. He has to run away. It takes him 40 years. From the time he kills the guy, it takes him 40 years for him to come back as the savior of the Israelites. He had a bad temperature, and he took some time. When David was going to be the king, replacing Saul, he gets kicked out of the kingdom. It takes him 8 years. 8 years before he comes back to the second do-over. For those of from the New Testament, Paul, one day he's Saul and he has a conversion and he's Paul. And we think he has the conversion and he's Paul, and the next day he goes off and he's a great spiritual teacher. 14 years from the day before he plants the first church in the Mediterranean. They took time. Time was not their enemy. Time was their friend. It built them up. That's what you and I need. The third myth is time. And I'm telling you, it's the one that'll hurt us the most. But I hope during this week, now come back next week, bring your friends. Because next week we're going to really get into a deep dive on how to do a divine do-over. This was just to get us ready. This was our prep work. Maybe you need a divine do-over in your marriage. Maybe your marriage is in the rearview mirror and you need to find a new marriage. Maybe you're in a job that you are just dying every Monday. Oh, I have a job. Maybe that's what divine do-over. Maybe that divine do-over can happen within that structure, or maybe you need to allow this series to help you get the courage to do a new job. Maybe retirement is right in your sight, but you are young. You are young. You have lots to do left. You need a divine do-over. Come back. Let's do it right. Let's take this message into prayer, knowing that we are in the heart and the mind and the very presence of the Most High God. There's only one God. It's that God that flows through each and every one of us, binding us together in love. And when one of us gets consumed with anything less than love, the rest of us just pull you back, just pull you back. I give thanks to this one presence. I give thanks to every person here who is dealing with big things in their life. Coming to church, saying, I know there are spiritual solutions to every problem, mine included. I give thanks for that. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.